Daniel sat in his office, staring at the envelope in front of him. The golden invitation felt heavier than it should have. His ex-girlfriend, Sophie, was getting married in a week, and somehow, he had convinced himself that he had to attend. Not because he wanted to, but because he felt a strange mix of pride, curiosity, and something else he didn't want to name. He leaned back in his leather chair and ran his hands through his hair. Daniel was a young CEO, successful, confident, and always in control. People admired him for his sharp mind, his calm demeanor, and his way of handling pressure. But tonight, sitting alone in his office with the city lights shimmering outside his window, he felt unsure, vulnerable, even. The thought of going to Sophie's wedding alone made his stomach twist. He imagined seeing her in a white dress, smiling at someone else, while everyone else clapped and cheered. The memories of their past happy afternoons, small arguments, late-night talks came flooding back. He had moved on, or at least he thought he had, but the invitation reminded him that some feelings never truly disappear. Daniel sighed and picked up the invitation again, reading it over carefully. The words were simple: "We are delighted to invite you to celebrate our wedding," but the paper seemed to mock him. He was a successful man who could buy anything he wanted, travel anywhere in the world, and attend any exclusive party. Yet here he was, worried about going to a wedding alone. He thought about calling one of his friends, maybe asking someone he knew from his social circle to join him. But that didn't feel right. The last thing he wanted was to appear desperate or petty in front of Sophie and her new fiancé. He needed someone, unexpected, someone who could come with him without judgment, someone who would make the evening feel less tense. Daniel's phone sat on the desk, glowing softly. He scrolled through contacts, not really expecting to find anyone suitable. Friends were busy, colleagues had other plans, and the usual +1 options were unavailable. And then his finger stopped on a name he barely recognized: Lila. Lila was a barista at the cafe he sometimes visited. They had exchanged smiles a few times, small greetings, and casual conversations about coffee and the weather. She was friendly, polite, and kind-hearted. Daniel didn't know much about her, but for some reason, her name felt right. Maybe it was her laugh, or the way she looked at people without judgment. Or maybe he just wanted someone real, someone simple, for a change. After a long pause, Daniel typed a message: "Hi Lila. I know this is sudden, but would you like to join me at a wedding next week? It's kind of last minute, but I think it could be fun." He stared at the screen for a few moments, hesitating. He had never asked someone like Lila to do anything personal before. But his curiosity and a hint of hope pushed him to press send. Almost immediately, his phone buzzed. Lila's reply came quickly: "Wow, okay, that sounds interesting. Sure, I'll go." Daniel couldn't help but grin. He felt a strange mix of relief and excitement. He didn't know what the evening would hold, or how it would feel to be beside someone he barely knew. But one thing was certain: it was better than going alone. Much better. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Daniel tried to focus on work, answering emails, and reviewing reports, but his mind kept drifting back to the invitation, to Sophie, and now to Lila. He imagined how she might look at the wedding, what kind of conversation they might have, and whether they would laugh together or feel awkward in silence. The thought of meeting her there filled him with anticipation, a feeling he hadn't felt in a long time. As night fell, Daniel stood by the large window in his office, looking down at the city below. The lights flickered like stars, and the gentle hum of traffic reminded him of how fast life moved. He realized that sometimes, the unexpected moments, the unplanned decisions could be the most memorable. For the first time in days, Daniel felt a spark of excitement. He wasn't just attending a wedding, he was stepping into the unknown. And for someone who always planned every detail of his life, that was thrilling. He put the invitation carefully in his drawer and whispered to himself, almost like a promise, this might just be the night everything changes. With that thought, Daniel finally left his office, feeling a little lighter, a little braver, and strangely hopeful about the girl who had said yes. The following week arrived faster than Daniel expected. His schedule was packed, meetings stretching from morning until late evening, but his mind kept drifting back to Lila and the wedding. He wasn't sure why, but the thought of seeing her in a completely different setting dressed up, walking beside him made him uneasy and excited at the same time. When the day finally came, Daniel decided to meet Lila before the wedding. He didn't want her to feel overwhelmed by the grandeur of the event or by his world of business and appearances. He chose the small cafe where she worked, a place that always felt calm and genuine, far from the polished luxury he was used to. He entered the cafe, the familiar smell of coffee and baked goods greeting him like an old friend. Behind the counter, Lila was arranging cups with care, her hair pulled back neatly, her face lit up by a simple smile that always seemed effortless. Daniel felt a sudden flutter in his chest. She looked different. Not because she had changed, but because now he was seeing her in a new light, as someone who would be stepping into a world he controlled but never truly shared with anyone. "Hi, Lila," he said, trying to sound casual, though his hands itched to adjust his tie and straighten his jacket. "Hi, Daniel," she replied warmly, her voice bright and calm. "You look fancy. Ready for the big event?" He chuckled. "I guess. I'm more nervous than I thought I would be." Lila tilted her head slightly. "Nervous about the wedding, or about me?" Daniel laughed, feeling the tension in his shoulders ease slightly. "Maybe a little bit of both," he admitted honestly. "I don't usually do this, ask someone I barely know to join me at something like this. But you seemed like someone who could handle it." Lila smiled, a soft, encouraging smile that made him feel lighter. "Well, I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I'll try. And don't worry, I'm sure we'll have fun." Daniel watched her for a moment. He realized how simple and genuine she was. There were no pretenses, no pressure to impress, no hidden agendas. Just Lila, being herself, and that made him feel more at ease than he had in months. They spent the next half hour talking casually while sipping coffee. Lila told stories about her life, small but meaningful moments, how she loved painting on weekends, the little victories at work, the joy of seeing a regular customer smile. Daniel shared bits of his life too, but carefully, in ways that didn't feel boastful. He wanted her to see him, not the CEO, not the millionaire, but just Daniel, the person beneath the suit and title. Before long, it was time to leave. Daniel had arranged for a car to take them to the wedding. He opened the door for Lila, and she stepped out gracefully, her dress simple but elegant, her presence natural and calming. For a brief moment, Daniel forgot the grandeur of the event, the expectations, and even his worries about Sophie. All he saw was her, standing there with a soft smile, ready to face the evening by his side. During the ride, Daniel found himself talking more freely than he had in months. Lila laughed at his jokes, asked questions that showed she genuinely wanted to know him, and shared her own excitement about attending a wedding for the first time in years. He felt a connection forming, quiet and steady, like a small flame that refused to be ignored. When they arrived at the venue, Daniel's nerves returned. The grand hall, the elegant decorations, the well-dressed guests, it all seemed overwhelming. He felt the familiar pang of anxiety about being judged, about facing Sophie with someone by his side. But when he looked at Lila, standing beside him with calm confidence and a warm smile, he felt braver. Somehow, just knowing she was there made the intimidating crowd seem less daunting. They walked inside together. Lila's presence was grounding. She whispered light comments that made him chuckle, guided him gently when they navigated the crowd, and even joked about the overly formal atmosphere. Daniel found himself relaxing, laughing more than he had in a long time, and noticing details he usually ignored: the soft music, the joyful chatter, the happiness that radiated from the couple being celebrated. For the first time, Daniel realized that maybe it wasn't about attending the wedding perfectly or keeping up appearances. Maybe it was about sharing the moment with someone who made him feel alive, someone who reminded him that life wasn't just about success, money, or image. It was about connection, laughter, and small, meaningful moments. As they found their seats and waited for the ceremony to begin, Daniel caught himself staring at Lila. Not in a strange or awkward way, but in awe at her simplicity, her warmth, and the calm confidence she carried. He had chosen her randomly, almost on a whim, and yet now he felt that perhaps this was exactly where he was meant to be. And for the first time since receiving the wedding invitation, Daniel felt a spark of excitement, not for the past, not for Sophie, but for the evening ahead, for the unexpected choice he had made, and for the girl who had agreed to come along. The wedding hall was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting soft light over the rows of chairs decorated with white ribbons. Soft music filled the room, mingling with quiet laughter and the occasional clink of glasses. Daniel walked in beside Lila, feeling the weight of every eye on him. Guests whispered as they recognized him, the young CEO who seemed to have everything. Daniel straightened his suit, trying to look confident. He had attended many events before, but tonight felt different. It wasn't the usual business party or gala. Tonight was personal. Sophie, his ex-girlfriend, was getting married, and her eyes would likely notice everything: his suit, his posture, even the person standing beside him. Lila, on the other hand, looked completely at ease. She scanned the hall with curiosity, her smile calm and natural. She didn't seem intimidated by the grandeur or the crowd, and Daniel realized that made her even more beautiful in his eyes. There was something in her simplicity, in her ease, that made the world feel less heavy. "Ready?" Daniel asked quietly, his voice low so only she could hear. Lila nodded. "I'm ready." "Don't worry so much, Daniel. Just enjoy it." He glanced at her, slightly amazed. How could someone so new in his life give him such comfort? He had been worrying for days, imagining the awkward stares, the questions, and the comparisons. But now, standing next to Lila, he felt a strange calm settle over him. She was like an anchor, steady and reassuring, grounding him in the present. As they approached the front of the hall, Sophie noticed them. Her eyes widened slightly, and for a moment, Daniel felt a flicker of the old tension, the complicated mix of pride, regret, and old affection. He straightened, offering a polite nod. Sophie returned it with a polite smile, but there was no warmth, only distance. Lila leaned closer, whispering, "Don't let it bother you. You look fine. Just be yourself." Her words, soft and honest, made Daniel exhale quietly. She didn't care about appearances, social standing, or who had been with whom in the past. She only cared about him, Daniel, not the CEO, not the ex-boyfriend. They found their seats in the front row, which made Daniel nervous. Everyone could see him, judge him, compare him. He felt eyes lingering, whispers passing through the crowd. But Lila reached for his hand lightly. Her touch was gentle, reassuring, and for a moment, Daniel felt all the anxiety melt away. The ceremony began. Soft music played, and the bride walked slowly down the aisle. Daniel felt a lump form in his throat. Sophie looked radiant, her smile genuine and happy. He forced himself to smile, though it felt strange and hollow at first. But then he glanced at Lila. She was watching him, not with judgment, but with curiosity and warmth. Her eyes seemed to say, "It's okay. Just feel it. Don't hide." Daniel realized that he didn't have to pretend in front of her. He could allow himself to feel vulnerable, to remember the past, and still move forward. During the ceremony, he noticed small details he had missed in other events. The gentle way the groom held Sophie's hand, the soft tears in her mother's eyes, the little smile the couple shared when no one else was looking. And all the while, Lila sat beside him, quietly observing, her presence calming, almost like a shield against his lingering insecurities. At one point, the ceremony ended, and guests began clapping. Daniel found himself laughing softly, the tension easing. Lila's hand stayed in his, and he realized that the simple act of holding hands, of sharing a quiet connection amidst the crowd, meant more than any luxurious surroundings could. As people moved to congratulate the bride and groom, Daniel and Lila found a small corner near the refreshments. She poured him a glass of water, and they shared a quiet laugh over the awkwardness of fancy weddings. "You're not like anyone I expected," Daniel said, smiling. "You're real. And it's kind of amazing." Lila tilted her head, smiling. "I think you're more nervous than I am. But it's okay. That makes you human." Daniel chuckled, feeling a warmth in his chest. He had spent so long in control of everything, business deals, appearances, success, that he had almost forgotten what it felt like to just exist in a moment. Lila reminded him that life wasn't just about winning or impressing people. It was about experiencing small joys, sharing laughs, and letting yourself feel. The night was just beginning, but already, Daniel felt that this unexpected choice, asking Lila to come with him, was one of the best decisions he had ever made. She had transformed what he thought would be a stressful, awkward evening into something new, something full of warmth and quiet excitement. As the music started for the first dance, Daniel realized he couldn't stop staring at Lila. Her smile, her calm presence, her gentle way of making him feel at ease, it captivated him. He didn't know what the night would hold, but one thing was certain: he wanted to see it all with her. And for the first time since receiving the wedding invitation, Daniel felt that this night might not just be about the past, it could be the start of something entirely new. After the ceremony ended, the hall was alive with laughter, congratulations, and the soft clinking of glasses. Guests mingled in clusters, exchanging warm words and polite smiles. Daniel felt a knot in his stomach. This was the part he had been dreading the most: the socializing, the polite conversations, and most of all, seeing Sophie up close. He adjusted his tie and looked down at Lila. She had a soft, encouraging smile, one that seemed to say, "Don't worry. I've got you." It was simple, yet it steadied him. He realized that having her by his side made the entire evening feel less intimidating. As they moved through the crowd, Sophie spotted him. Her eyes widened for a brief moment before she quickly composed herself. "Daniel," she said, her voice polite but distant. "I didn't expect to see you here." Daniel forced a calm smile. "I wanted to be here, to celebrate your happiness," he replied. His words were genuine, though his stomach twisted slightly. He wasn't sure if Sophie noticed the subtle tension in his tone. Sophie nodded, barely glancing at Lila. "And you brought a guest?" she asked, her voice neutral. "Yes," Daniel said, glancing at Lila. "This is Lila." "Lila, this is Sophie, my ex-girlfriend." Lila extended her hand with a warm smile. "It's nice to meet you, Sophie. Thank you for letting me share this evening with Daniel." Sophie shook her hand politely, her smile small and controlled. "Nice to meet you, Lila," she said. Then she excused herself to greet another group of friends. Daniel exhaled slowly. That had gone, okay, he thought. Maybe even better than he expected. Lila squeezed his hand gently, whispering, "See? Not so bad." He chuckled softly, feeling the tension ease. There was something about her calm presence that made the social pressure vanish. She didn't judge, didn't overthink, and most importantly, she made him feel human. They moved further into the hall, finding a quiet corner near the refreshments. Daniel offered Lila a glass of sparkling water. She accepted with a smile and a light laugh. "This place is fancy. I didn't think weddings were like this," she said, looking around with curious eyes. Daniel smiled. "It's a lot to take in. But having someone to share it with, it makes it better." Lila tilted her head. "I can see that. You look different from before, less tense. Maybe you just needed someone to talk to." Her words made Daniel pause. She was right. He had spent so long trying to control everything, worrying about appearances, about people's opinions, that he had almost forgotten what it was like to just enjoy a moment. Lila reminded him that life wasn't about perfection, it was about connection, laughter, and presence. As the evening went on, they found themselves laughing quietly at small, funny moments, a child spilling juice on a chair, a guest struggling to balance a plate of food, and the groom's nervous cousin attempting to dance. Daniel noticed how Lila's laughter was genuine, unforced, and contagious. He felt a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with the luxurious surroundings. A waiter passed by with a tray of desserts. Lila chose a small chocolate tart and offered Daniel a bite. He took it, smiling at the simplicity of the moment. For a while, it felt like the rest of the world disappeared. The grand hall, the guests, even Sophie faded into the background. It was just him and Lila, sharing a quiet, unexpected connection. At one point, Sophie returned, talking to a group of friends. Daniel felt a flicker of old emotions, memories of arguments, laughter, and late-night talks, but when he glanced at Lila, he realized something important. The past was gone, and what mattered now was the present. Lila was here, not judging him, not expecting anything, just sharing the evening in her calm, gentle way. As the night progressed, Daniel found himself drawn to her even more. Her kindness, her simplicity, and her ability to make him feel at ease were magnetic. He caught himself stealing glances, noticing the way her eyes sparkled when she laughed, the warmth in her smile, and the way she carried herself with quiet confidence. The awkwardness of the initial introductions had faded. Instead of anxiety, Daniel felt gratitude, grateful for Lila, for her presence, and for the unexpected courage she gave him. He realized that she had changed the entire evening for him. What he had imagined would be stressful and uncomfortable was now turning into something meaningful. As they stood together, watching guests chat and dance, Daniel felt a strange mix of excitement and peace. He didn't know what the night would bring, but one thing was clear: having Lila by his side made everything better, and he didn't want this moment to end. The reception hall was alive with music and chatter, but Daniel hardly noticed the crowd anymore. His attention was entirely on Lila. Every time she laughed at something small, a guest's joke, a clumsy waiter, or even his own nervous comment, his heart felt lighter. He realized that her presence was changing him. The evening was no longer about Sophie's wedding or past memories, it was about this unexpected connection he was forming with someone entirely new. The DJ announced the first dance, and couples moved to the center of the hall. Daniel hesitated, looking down at Lila. "Do you want to dance?" he asked, unsure. Lila's eyes lit up. "I'd love to." He offered his hand, and she took it, letting him guide her gently to the dance floor. The music was slow, soft, and romantic, but not overpowering. Daniel was used to commanding attention in boardrooms and meetings, but here, with Lila in his arms, he felt entirely vulnerable. "You're a good dancer," Lila said softly, smiling up at him. Daniel chuckled, feeling a little embarrassed. "I'm not. I'm more of a step and stumble kind of dancer." Lila laughed, a sound that made him forget everything else in the room. "That's okay. I don't mind. Just follow my lead." As they moved together, he noticed how natural it felt to be beside her. Her hand in his, her head lightly resting near his shoulder, it was comfortable, effortless. And in that moment, Daniel understood something he hadn't felt in a long time: he could be himself without pretension, without worrying about appearances or expectations. The night continued, and Daniel found himself wanting to know more about Lila. "Do you come to weddings often?" he asked, trying to make conversation. "Not really," she admitted, "but I enjoy them. People are happy, and there's a lot of laughter. It's nice to see that sometimes." Daniel nodded, thinking about his own experiences. Most of the weddings he had attended were filled with people trying to impress each other, with polite smiles hiding true feelings. But Lila's words made him see it differently. Maybe weddings could be about something more genuine, about connection, about joy, and about sharing moments without pretense. As the evening went on, they moved from the dance floor to a quieter corner near the balcony. The city lights glittered below, and the soft hum of music from inside created a calm atmosphere. Lila leaned slightly closer, and Daniel noticed the subtle way her presence made him feel relaxed, almost weightless. "You seem different tonight," Lila said softly, looking up at him. "Happier, I think." Daniel felt a small smile tug at his lips. "I am. I don't know why, really, but being here with you, it's different. Easy. Comfortable. I've forgotten what that feels like." Lila's smile deepened. "Maybe you just needed someone to remind you." Her words struck him. She didn't know the struggles he faced daily, the pressures of running a company, or the walls he built around himself. Yet somehow, her simple presence made those walls seem unnecessary. Daniel realized that for the first time in years, he didn't feel the need to protect himself or impress anyone. He could just feel. They talked quietly, sharing stories about their lives, dreams, and small everyday experiences. Daniel found himself laughing more than he had in months, and Lila seemed genuinely interested in every word he said. There was no judgment, no pretense, just two people connecting, slowly and naturally. At one point, Lila noticed his gaze lingering. "You keep staring at me," she said, teasing gently. Daniel blushed slightly. "I can't help it. You're different. In a good way. You make everything else feel less important." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "You're sweet. But don't worry, I like it." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of dancing, laughter, and quiet conversations. Daniel felt a sense of warmth he hadn't felt in years, a feeling that had nothing to do with money, status, or appearances. It was real, simple, and undeniable. By the end of the night, Daniel realized that he couldn't stop thinking about Lila. Her smile, her laughter, her calm presence, they had become the highlight of the evening. And as they left the reception, walking side by side through the softly lit streets, he knew one thing for certain: this unexpected connection, born from a random invitation, was something he didn't want to let go of. For the first time since Sophie's wedding invitation arrived, Daniel felt hope not for the past, but for something new, something genuine, something entirely his own. And he couldn't wait to see where this connection with Lila would lead. The reception hall was slowly emptying, leaving behind soft music, scattered decorations, and a quiet sense of calm. Daniel and Lila stepped outside onto the balcony, where the city lights stretched endlessly, twinkling like stars. The cool night air brushed against their faces, bringing a sense of peace after the busy evening. Daniel leaned against the railing, watching the lights below, but his thoughts kept returning to Lila. Her presence had changed everything tonight: her laughter, her calm nature, and the simple way she made him feel at ease. He had been nervous at first, worried about the wedding, about Sophie, about appearances. But now, with Lila beside him, all of that seemed far away, unimportant. Lila stood quietly, gazing at the city, her hands resting gently on the railing. She didn't speak at first, just letting the silence flow comfortably between them. Daniel realized how rare it was for him to be with someone without distractions, without pressures, without expectations. For a moment, he felt a small sense of freedom. Finally, he spoke, his voice soft. "I don't usually do this," he said, glancing at her. "I don't usually open up like this. But tonight, being with you, it feels different. Easier. Calmer." Lila turned to look at him, her eyes curious and warm. "You can tell me anything," she said gently. "I'm listening." Daniel took a deep breath, the words catching slightly in his throat. "I've spent so long worrying about everything: work, people's opinions, appearances. I've built walls around myself. And I thought I was fine, until tonight. You made me realize how much I've been missing. How much I've been shutting out." He paused, unsure if he should continue. But something about the way Lila looked at him, without judgment or expectation, gave him courage. "I'm glad I asked you to come tonight. I don't know why I chose you, really. It was random, almost silly. But, now, I can't stop thinking about you. You've made this night better than I expected. Easier. And I like that." Lila's lips curved into a soft, understanding smile. She reached out and lightly touched his arm, a simple gesture that sent warmth through him. "I'm glad I came too," she said. "And I'm glad you invited me. I didn't know what to expect, but tonight has been special. Not because of the wedding, not because of anything else, but because of this moment. Us." Daniel felt his chest tighten slightly. Her words were honest, simple, and sincere, and they struck something deep inside him. He realized he didn't need grand gestures or impressive titles to impress her. All he needed was to be himself, and she accepted him without hesitation. For a moment, they stood in silence, letting the night settle around them. The city lights sparkled below, and the soft hum of the music inside the hall was distant but comforting. Daniel felt a mix of relief and excitement, a strange combination he hadn't felt in years. Finally, he smiled, a real, unguarded smile that reached his eyes. "I didn't expect tonight to turn out like this," he admitted. "I thought it would be awkward, stressful, maybe even painful. But with you here, it's perfect. Not perfect in a showy way, but perfect in the way that matters. Real. Honest." Lila's smile grew, and she tilted her head slightly. "That's how it should be," she said softly. "Life isn't about looking perfect or following rules. It's about moments like this, small, unexpected, meaningful moments." Daniel nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. He had spent so long chasing success, approval, and appearances that he had forgotten what truly mattered. Tonight, he had rediscovered it, not through wealth, status, or control, but through connection, laughter, and the presence of someone genuine. He looked at Lila again, feeling a rush of emotion he could not put into words. "I don't want this night to end," he admitted quietly. "I don't want to go back to the way things were, before you came along." Lila's eyes softened, and she reached for his hand. "Maybe it doesn't have to end," she said. "Maybe this is just the beginning, if you want it to be." Daniel's heart swelled with a mixture of hope, gratitude, and something deeper he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. For the first time, he wasn't worried about judgment, appearances, or expectations. All that mattered was the connection between him and Lila, honest, simple, and real. As they stood together on the balcony, the city lights stretching endlessly below, Daniel realized that tonight had given him something far more valuable than he could have imagined. He had found someone who could see him, not the CEO, not the ex-boyfriend, not the wealthy man, but Daniel, the person beneath it all. And for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to hope for connection, for happiness, and for a future that felt real, meaningful, and entirely his own. The wedding had slowly come to an end. Guests were leaving in small groups, laughing and saying their goodbyes. The reception hall, once full of chatter and music, now felt quiet and almost intimate. Daniel and Lila lingered near the entrance, neither wanting to leave just yet. Daniel felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, gratitude, and a little bit of nervousness. He looked at Lila, her face glowing under the soft lights, her smile warm and calm. He had spent the evening worried, anxious, and unsure, but somehow, with her by his side, the night had transformed into something unforgettable. "I can't believe how fast the evening went," Daniel said softly, glancing at her. Lila laughed lightly, a sound that made him smile without thinking. "Time flies when you're having fun," she replied. "And tonight, I had a lot of fun." Daniel felt his chest tighten in a way he hadn't expected. "I did too," he admitted. "More than I thought I would. Honestly, I wasn't sure I could enjoy this night at all. But, you made it different. Better. Easier." Lila's eyes softened as she looked at him. "I'm glad," she said simply. "I didn't expect to feel this way either. But I'm happy I came." Daniel took a deep breath, realizing that the words he had been holding back all evening needed to be said. "Lila, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but tonight, being with you, it's made me see things differently. I've been so focused on work, on appearances, on everything that I forgot what it feels like to just connect with someone. To feel real. And you reminded me of that. Lila reached for his hand, her touch gentle and reassuring. You've always had that in you, Daniel, she said. I just helped you remember it. He smiled, feeling warmth spread through his chest. There was something about her honesty, her simplicity, and the way she made him feel comfortable that was almost magical. Daniel realized that he didn't need to impress anyone, not Sophie, not the guests, not even himself. What mattered was this moment, this connection, and the girl standing beside him. For a while, they stood quietly, just holding hands and watching the city lights twinkle below. The soft breeze carried the faint sound of laughter and music from the distant streets, and Daniel felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. You know, he said finally, I didn't expect to come to a wedding and leave feeling hopeful. I thought it would be awkward, maybe even painful. But with you here, it feels like something has changed. Not just for tonight, but for me. Lila smiled, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the lights. Maybe that's the point, she said. Sometimes the unexpected things, the random choices, they change everything. And tonight, we both chose something new. Daniel squeezed her hand gently, feeling a surge of emotion. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, the nerves, the hesitation, the awkward introductions, and the quiet moments that had slowly built a bond between them. And now, standing with Lila, he realized that this night had become something more than just attending an ex's wedding. It had become a turning point. I'm glad I picked you, he said quietly, almost to himself. I didn't know then what I would feel tonight, but now I do. You make me feel alive. Really alive. Lila's smile widened, and she leaned slightly closer. I'm glad too, she whispered. This night, it's just the beginning. For both of us. Daniel felt his heart swell. For so long, he had measured life by success, wealth, and control. But now, he understood something he had almost forgotten. Life was measured by moments, by connections, by the people who made you feel like yourself. And Lila had become that person for him tonight. As they walked to the car together, Daniel glanced at the empty streets, the quiet city, and the fading lights of the wedding hall. He realized that he didn't want this night to end, not the conversation, not the laughter, not the feeling of being with someone who understood him without judgment. When they reached Lila's building, Daniel stopped and looked at her. I know tonight is over, but I hope this isn't the last time we see each other. I want more moments like this. With you. Lila's eyes sparkled. I'd like that too, she said softly. I'd like that very much. Daniel smiled, a deep, genuine smile that reflected relief, hope, and something entirely new. For the first time in a long time, he felt certain of one thing: this was not just a fleeting connection. This was the start of something real, something meaningful, something worth holding on to. As he watched her disappear inside her building, Daniel felt a sense of gratitude so strong it filled his chest. The wedding, which he had feared and dreaded, had unexpectedly given him something far more valuable than he could have imagined: the chance to rediscover himself, to connect genuinely, and to begin a new chapter with someone extraordinary. The city lights sparkled around him as he walked back to his car, feeling lighter, happier, and more hopeful than he had in years. Daniel knew one thing for sure: this was the start of a new beginning. And he couldn't wait to see where it would lead.